And so I'm very excited to have this gentleman here on my show this evening. I'm talking about no one, the one and only Mr. Warren Wolf. Mr. Warren Wolf, everyone. So I'm very happy to have Warren on the show today. What's up, brother? How you doing, sir?
Everything's good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, man. Well, hey, first of all, thank you so much for rescheduling with me. To everybody who's watching, man, I had a life scare for a second. Everything is all good. Life is good again. And me and Warren were supposed to have our show happen about 2 weeks ago, but we were able to get it in this week. So I do appreciate you, brother, for being here this evening, man. How you doing? How you holding up?
Everything's cool, man. I've just been trying to keep busy as much as I possibly can. Just the wheels are turning in the brain. Know, we're waiting to see what happens.
Right, exactly.
Well,
Man,
not waiting, but things are slowly moving.
let me ask you. I saw on your post the other day, and you gave me and a bunch of musicians around the country hope, right? Because we all have been in them situations when the gig can go wrong, but it ends up working out. And you was
Yep.
describing your eventful night, man. Did that bring back memories? Like, was it? I mean, not that I wish that had happened to you, but
Yeah.
you know how when you have those road memories, like, man, I remember this one time on the road. Like, was it that situation, or it was kind of like a, dang, no, this just happened.
I mean, not really. It was kind of like, all right, this just happened. All right, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to get out of this?
Right.
Honestly, my first thought, it wasn't me even trying to get out of the gig. It was more like, I don't think I can make it. That was my number one thought. I was like, this ain't happening. I was like, if I do make it, and I've seen some situations that were like, oh, it's cool, we'll just wait on. We'll hold on for 30 minutes. But, I just maybe, the good Lord was looking out for me. The emergency repair man came within 15 minutes on my call.
Whew.
So, and typically, if you ever try to deal with AAA or any of those companies, typically they take like 45 minutes to an hour to come. 15 minutes, he was there. Change the tire. Let's go.
Right. Let's go. We ain't even
But
sweating
then,
it.
yeah, that was one thing. But then, finished the gig. Then I was like, okay, how am I going to get home? And but it was cool. Once you start traveling, most of it's just common sense. But once you start traveling, you be around people, you get into similar situations.
Right.
You know what to do.
Yeah. Man, I have not that I want to bore you on this story, but I had an interesting situation that happened to me a couple of years ago. I was on my way to a gig that was 2 hours away from my house. I'm driving now, Warren. You gonna be baffled when you hear this, because everybody I told this story to, they like, bruh, how did you do that? Yeah. So I'm halfway there, and I was I was nervous because I was playing with BB King. This is like right before he passed. I had the opportunity to play a gig with him in Apalachicola, and I'm driving to the gig, and man, I got an hour and about 15 minutes into the drive, and I realized I didn't have my bass. I was so nervous and trying to get to the gig, I forgot to grab my instrument.
Wow.
So my bandmates who were driving behind me saw me make a U-turn. I hauled behind back to Tallahassee doing a $120 back to Tallahassee, ran in the house, grabbed my bass, and then same situation like you. I showed up 2 minutes before downtime, before the downbeat, and
driving like a cat.
Oh man, I said the Lord was looking out for me that day, because when I showed up, BB King's people were waiting, and when I pulled up, I say, man, look, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, because I'm a very honest guy. Like, I forgot my instrument. I had to turn back around and go get my bass.
Yeah.
And they just bust out laughing. They thought it was like, you did what? Like, how you forget a upright bass? Like, how do you forget? That's like you showing up to the gig and you like, man, I don't have my vibraphones or my drum kit. You like, how you forget?
Yeah.
So.
I'm not going to tell this whole story. I'll just tell you the top of it.
Okay.
Many years ago, I remember when I was in college, we were taking a trip to Montreal. And from Boston to Montreal was a good 6-hour drive. Why? And this is all I'm gonna say. Why is it that when we got to the border, one guy in the band just realized, I don't have my passport.
Oh no.
But we had to be in Montreal. So Cass drove 6 hours back. My man walked in the house, grabbed his passport. All right, let's go. I was just like, but you know, we all young. We 21 years old. It's cool.
Man, we'll just rush back, and if somebody
Yeah,
get caught by the cops, you know, one of us will take the L. We'll bail you out. No worries.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
speaking of, man, you are from are you originally from Baltimore? Is that like your
I'm born and raised.
man? Okay, so you know I gotta ask you the obvious. Did you see them film The Wire at all? Like,
No, I've never seen that. I've never seen them film The Wire. I've never even seen a single episode of The Wire. I mean,
what?
I'm born and raised in it. See, one thing about, I mean, I don't know, this is not nothing to brag about, but I'm just
Right.
saying how it is.
Yeah.
I grew up in a rough part of Baltimore. I grew up like right in the middle of the hood.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, I've seen like people get murdered and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But weird enough, it's like the neighborhood was crazy, but it was still good people who, you know, it's always some good folks who live in that neighborhood, but
Right.
things happen. But you know, my dad, he's now retired. He was a history teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools, taught United States and world history.
Wow.
And he knew those things were happening in the neighborhood. You know, I mean, of course, back then, you know, even as myself as a young kid, we get in fights. You know, we fight our friends, but then the next day we're cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right. Yep. That's how it was. Yep.
But in order for my dad to try to keep me away from the other stuff that was happening, you know, he was like, and also a lot of my, well, not a lot, but some of my family members, they have some issues too. My dad was like, I'm gonna give you something to do, and that just happened to be music.
Is your dad a musician?
Yes, he is, but he didn't do it like touring wise. Like I said, his job was teaching.
Okay.
But he took that information and knowledge that he learned from just overall teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Like in our house, this dude had thousands of books about history. I mean, anything about history. So how he taught himself music was through books. And you know, everything that he played is what I played. Like my dad plays vibes, he plays drums, piano, and his main thing that he was like really good at that I just could never do was hand percussion. So like my dad got some hard hands. He used to get, you know, when he playing on congas, he get that pop that.
Yeah.
Like I tried to do it, I was like, nah, that's not happening. So, but everything I learned from him, I used to see him play with drums. I was like, I'm gonna play drums. I mean, it goes so far. Like my dad is a natural lefty drummer. I mean, naturally lefty person, so he plays drums left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of me seeing the drums set up like that, I play drums left-handed, even though I'm a right-handed person.
So you sit like, or
if
like
you're sitting at the drums, my rod symbol is on my left.
on the left, yeah. Oh wow.
Hi-hat on the right.
Man, how does that work when you play with other people? Like, do they look at you funny like when you set up like that?
Some people would look at me funny for a second, but then it's like, oh, whatever, it's cool. You know, as long as you plan it.
Right.
The only issue with me, and not all the time, but I would say probably 80% of the time, I don't sit in at jam sessions like how I want to, because I gotta be like, hold on, let me move this, and I just don't feel like doing those. So sometimes when I show people like, yo, you wanna play drums? I'd be like, nah. Like I'm good. I'd rather just sit in on piano, or if it's not really a happening gig, I'll be like, hey man, can I play a tune or two on bass? You know, just to keep some type of chops up.
Right. So that's actually gonna be my next question, because I know you play marimba and drums.
Yeah.
You know, and then piano. Which one of those, or I guess in that three order, which one was your first introductory? Like
my first introduction outside of marimba, you mean?
Yeah, my outside of marimba. Drums, okay.
Yeah.
And then how did you get into piano?
That just came a few years later because my dad wanted me to be the total percussionist. So, I mean, I also did symphonic classical stuff too. Like my teachers were members of the Baltimore Symphony, so I had to learn how to play timpani and all that. But you know, as far as like the stuff that was in our home, it was drums, and then maybe 2 years later, the piano. Bass didn't really come, and I've always loved the bass. You know, I'm kind of like how they said Miles Davis was with the bass. Like they said he was always like very close to Ron Carter or Paul Chambers, whoever, because he is well, at least back then, it was probably one of the softest instruments in the band. So he wanted to hear what they were playing. And
Right.
me, I just love playing with like really good bass players. Like, I mean, playing behind McBride, Rodney Whitaker, just all of these cats I've played with, these bass players, and I just love hearing like the ideas, the beat that they have, and for me personally, I just think bass players look really cool. Just the way they like the way they stand, how it's leaning on, they just look, just real cool.
Right.
So, but my teacher, well, the head of the music department back in my high school, which was the Baltimore School for the Arts, I asked him, I think it was during my the summer after I finished my junior year. I asked him, I was like, "Hey, can I take a bass home for the summer?" And he was like, "Sure." So I took it home and I just started trying to play little things. I think one of the first pieces that I played, I couldn't bow. I just kind of guessed some of the notes. I was pizzicato,
Right.
the tune off of Carnival of the Animals by Saint Saëns.
Yeah.
He's called the Elephant.
The elephant. Yeah.
Yep. So I tried to just copy that. I played, to that, and I just kept doing it, And then when they took the bass back, that was pretty much the end of the on an everyday basis.
So wait, so when you played, I know you did a I don't know if you're still part of that group or not, but I know you did a sting with the Inside Straight band, Chris McBride's band. Was it those kind of situations where you caught yourself kind of like, and I don't know, were you playing drums or vibes in that group? You were playing vibes?
Vibes all the way. Yeah.
Vibes all the way. Okay. And I believe if I could think of the drummer who might be, was it Quincy Phillips that
no,
was
that's,
he playing with?
No, that's Carl Allen.
Carl Allen played in that band.
And
okay.
Sometimes Ulysses Owens played as well, but majority of the time it was Carl Allen.
Okay. So you got right there. If you got him on drums and McBride, that right there can be an exciting situation to be in. But do you feed off of bass players better than when, like, if you're playing vibraphone, are you listening for the bass or the piano? Because obviously you can play both, and you being a rhythm section player as well. What is it that which one of those instruments resonate to you a lot better when you're in the bandstand?
It's probably going to be the bass because I want to feel the beat, and that has nothing to do with just swing. I mean, it could be any style. If we're playing funk or something, I just want to feel like that bottom of your instrument, even if it's electric bass. I want to feel all of that. The piano is more like the splash, the colors, which direction are we going? You know what I mean? But the bass combined with the drums is like the root of it. That's like the engine. If I'm not really feeling that right there, since we're talking about the bass, if I'm not really feeling that, it's not really happening.
Man, I will say this though, like when we did our performance at the Gen Conference in January, I remember calling my wife before I went downstairs, and I said, "Man, I'm about to play with Warren Wolf and Chad LB and Jason Hainsworth." And my wife is like, "Well, I know you know that. I don't know who any of these people are." I'm like, "Man, just pray for me." Because I know, and I kept thinking about specifically you and Matt Wilson, the two of you, because both of you play drums. So as a bass player, I am always making sure that I lock in with the drummer. Like that's like my main objective when I'm on stage, having fun, but I gotta lock in with that drums because if that relationship is tight, nothing can disrupt the flow of the music. Like like what happened, like it was swinging, it felt good, and everybody was playing at a high level. But what I wanted to ask you is, man, I know you went to Berklee. First of all, my old bass teacher, Jeff Denson, told me to tell you hello.
That's your bass teacher?
Yeah, he was my bass teacher when I was in college.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, Jeff was getting his master's degree at FSU when I was in undergrad. So I studied with him for 2 years when he was doing his master's. So I told him I was going to do this interview with you. He said, "Man, tell Warren I said hello, man. We go all the way back to Berklee." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll let him know." And I seen, man, you went to Berklee during I would consider like the golden years of jazz, like when the Young Lions era was coming out, right? Because I saw that Jeremy Pelt was there with you. Jeff was telling me he was there with you. I saw a few people you mentioned in your bio that you went to school with during that time frame. Man, what was it like during that? That had to be like mid 80s or the 90s, excuse me.
Yeah, mid to late '90s. I started at Berklee in the fall of '97, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I mean, I was definitely in my classes, but when the classes were over, at least at that time, which was 6 o'clock. Of course, we eat dinner first, so let's just say around eight.
Mm-hmm.
Around 8 o'clock is when a lot of people would start, you know, hitting these practice rooms. So Berklee will always let bands have 2 hour increments in the practice room to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just walk around and I was just like totally like jazzed out. I was like, if you and that's weird because I mean I didn't grow up in a jazz household, but I was just like, if you ain't playing jazz, leave me alone. But anyway, I would just walk around to different rooms and just kind of put my ear and be like, all right, let me see if they killing, let me see if they killing. But I remember this one room I just happened to walk into. Well, I didn't walk in, I just knocked on the door. And who that person was who came to who opened the door was saxophonist Jalil Shaw.
Whoo!
So he comes to the door. We didn't know each other. I was like, "Hey man, my name Warren. I'm just a new guy. Y'all sound good. Can I come? Can I come play with y'all?" He was like, "Yeah, yeah, come on." And I walked in there, and I turned the corner. Who was out? I don't know if you know this guy. I mean, most people do. His name was Rashawn Ross.
Rashawn
Rashawn
Ross. Mhm.
Rashawn Ross is the right now the trumpeter for Dave Matthews.
Oh wow.
But this dude he's played with them. He played with Soul Live. He played another group called Yerba Buena. But Rashawn's dope. His dude
Mm-hmm.
sound very identical to Nicholas Payton.
Oh
And
dang.
another bass player, this I don't remember the pianist and the drummer, but the bass player who was in there was this Italian cat. Oh, he's not Italian. He's Swedish. Sorry. Name was Massimo Biocati.
Hmm.
Massimo Biocati is the most people don't know this, but he is the founder of the I Real book. You know
Like the actual book, like
the thing that the app that most
the
people
app.
use. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the creator for that.
Dang, that's heavy.
So, so yeah, I walked in there, and but they were there, and then I remember just walking around and just meeting people like Jeremy Pelt, uh, Wayne Escoffery, trumpeter Corey Wilkes, who's out in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
um, Darren Barrett, Jimmy Green. Uh, Man, there was a whole bunch of folks there. Even some folks who were just not in jazz. One of the biggest names I like to say, he used to live down the hall from me, was John Mayer. So
What?
yeah,
Wait, he was at Berkeley during the time you was there?
yeah, we were all
Oh
just
my.
chilling. We used to all just hang.
Oh, that's dope.
Um, I remember I commented on one of his posts on Instagram recently, and he commented back like, "Yo, what's up, Warren? What's going on?" Then I logged on Instagram maybe like 7 hours later, and I had 70 new friend requests. I was like, "What is this about?" And then I looked at them. I was like, "Oh, they all
That's a
follow John Mayer. They saw me. They were like, oh, he must be somebody." But
oh, that's funny.
yeah, I went to school with all of those folks, man. I gotta say, Jeremy Pelt was probably the one guy that really looked out for me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the main things that we used to do there was have this thing called a calf show. We used to all like play shows in the cafeteria, and Jeremy used to put me on, and he still does this till today. He likes to give younger folks a chance, but
Mm-hmm.
he gave me one of my first chance to play at the school. Um, Jeremy was the very first person to give me a gig, also in New York City when we were playing at we did a gig at Cleopatra's Needle. And
Okay.
funny on that gig, it was let's see, it was me, Jeremy, Charles Haynes. Charles Haynes is a dope drummer. He's one of the few drummers I know who's very comfortable in all styles. I mean, from jazz to hip hop to whatever R&B,
Mm-hmm.
commercial. But Charles Haynes, Jeremy Pelt, me, Myron Walden was on saxophone, and a young Robert Glasper. So,
Wow.
but
Dude.
yeah, we was all jammed in on that little tiny club. So, but yeah, man, Berklee was hot, man. It was just a great meeting pool for just people who just played music. It necessarily wasn't about jazz, but most of the cast who I met at the time, they were definitely playing jazz. Then they just kind of branched off into other areas.
Right. Man, and I wanted to ask you too, um, one of the first times I've only played in Boston twice. I've played at the Lily Pad
Mm-hmm.
down there in Cambridge,
Yep.
and then I played at Scullers. And the one time that I I got to play at Scullers. That weekend that I played there, I was with the trio. We went down to Wally's,
Okay.
and but I played at Scullers on a Sunday evening, and we played at the jam session that Monday night. And I think that was like the historic like night that all the cats will go out. And I met Frank Poindexter. Frank it talked to me and my guys that, and he's like, man, he said, man, listen, if you gonna come in here, you can't be coming in here wasting our time. You gotta come. Like, I don't know if he was hyped like that when you was.
He's always hyped. That's what.
But like, but I remember being in that room and the sheer amount of cats that could play in that space was just like unbelievable. It was almost intimidating coming from Florida, and you're not used to that scene. So what was that? Was it kind of like that for you when you made that transition from Baltimore up to Boston? I mean, that's kind of a skip away from you, but
Oh, definitely, man. I mean, like I said, the school was one thing, and then once, I refused to wait 4 years to go inside Wiley's because I was, you have to be 21 to get in there. Mm-hmm. But eventually, once I got to know Frank and his brother Paul and their mother, and there's another guy named Lloyd, it's three brothers and the mother. Mm-hmm. They were actually cool. So eventually, Wiley's was my gig on Friday and Saturday nights. I co-led a band with trumpeter Jason Palmer, and we played every Friday and Saturday night for 2 years. And they were fun, energetic sets, man. And the first set was always 2 hours. We played from 9:30 to 11:30. Took a half-hour break and then come back and play out another 90 minutes. But it was just, from where the stage was, and then there would be maybe 30 cats in the corner with their horns, just waiting. Be like, yo, let me play. And it was. We would let them play, but we always had that attitude like, no, hold on, y'all gonna listen to us play first.
Right. Like you ever experience that when you on the road, man? Like when you play with some real heavy cast that like you about to have a good time with, but then it get to a point in the show where you like, dang man, you done said like you done took like 8 courses already.
Yeah.
You still ain't said what you had to say yet. Like, and I know for you, man, like I've watched videos of you playing. And I'm like, I know Warren got to be tired. Because if I was, or I'd be looking at videos of Christian playing with his big band. I'm like, Christian got some good endurance, but I know you got to be tired at some point when the cat just going in. Unless you've had the experiences where it's like, yo, I'm just vibing. Like you say, I'm vibing with the band because it feels so good. I don't care how long they play, it's going well. Yeah. So do you ever have those moments?
Where I'm tired, you mean? Or
no, like where you're so tired, but you just don't care because the music is so good and it's the energy is so right that you can kind of muscle through it.
Yeah, I can. Well, one thing I can say, I've never been tired playing.
That's good.
Never. Yeah, no, my endurance is pretty high, and that comes from the whole exercise thing. But sometimes, I've been around certain musicians, and I'm just like, dude, it's not that you don't sound good, but I'm like, just stop. You said what you had to say 2 courses ago. Mm-hmm. But then other folks, they'll be playing, and I'm like, man, this is just, like you said, such a vibe. They're just taking it to the upper level. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, dude, keep going. Don't stop. So, that's, one of my favorite players who I feel who always does that is Kenny Garrett. Like, Kenny will find ways to just lift the band. It's just like, dude, just keep going.
Man, speaking of Kenny Garrett and bands, your track record as a sideman is just immaculate, man. And I really do. It's so inspiring to not only see the people you've worked with, but when I hear you play with those bands, it's like that's the kind of level of musicianship that all of us is trying to strive for. Even you and if you wouldn't mind saying this on your behalf, but being a student in music, like I'm still learning, still trying to get better, trying to be the best version of you. Mm-hmm. What was it like, and I know you've been in in Kareem Riggins' band, in McBride's band, and you mentioned Bobby Watson's band too. What was the difference of your role in each of those bands, and what was the experiences that you were able to gain and take away, like the knowledge you was able to take away from those groups?
One of the main things that I've learned from everybody, no matter who I play with, is just you're being not necessarily trained, but you just have experiences in all styles. When I'm out there with Kareem, it's like we're doing a mix of like random jazz songs I've never heard before, but they're killing. And then he'll throw in the hip hop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to actually bring that side out of me, that hip hop jazz. Bobby Watson, I'm bringing just more of that. I'm thinking more of, that Art Blakey era.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of just go out and hit, just hit as much as you can. Same, that's kind of like the same with McBride, except, I'm sharing the front line with Steve Wilson on saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also with the SF Jazz Collective. Now I
Mm-hmm.
look at that more as a composer, well, at least the past reincarnations, the past incarnations of it, is more of a composer's band, and everybody has a certain role. I don't really know what my role is in that band. I just kind of do it.
Right.
We read a lot of notes, and you just, I mean, we all try to come together as one voice. It's just that's a beautiful situation. This past year with the SF Jazz Collective was totally different in the band's history because we were actually playing funk.
Mm.
We were doing the music of Sly Stone, and we
Ooh.
had a vocalist in the band, but we didn't get a chance to tour that because of everything that's going on. So
Right.
we did 2 shows and that was it.
Man, who was being Larry Graham in that band? Please, who was playing the bass role on that?
Matt, honestly, Matt Brewer,
Really?
and
He,
I had no idea he could do that.
I ain't either.
I mean, Obed Calvero, drummer, he says he was like, dude, Matt can play some electric bass, and it's not often where you meet people or upright bass players who can play electric really well. Same thing, vice versa. Is sometimes you got some killing electric players who can, if you need that sound of the upright, they'll be like, all right, yeah, I could do that. But are they gonna really come out here thumping like McBride or any of these other people? Nah. But it's not
Right.
often that you're gonna meet the ones who are like really gifted on both, no matter which one. I know a lot of folks are, the people really love Ben Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Matt Brewer. Now that I found out he can do it, but there are others. This kind of right now. I think they're kind of stuck in that box by their peers and the general public because they don't see them on that. Like for instance, I'll give you a good example. My boy, bass player, upright, he's killing Yasushi Nakamura in New York. We went to Berklee together. And I just happened to ask him. I was like, dude, you play upright? I'm sorry, do you play electric? He was like, man, I can really play electric. People just don't know that because they just call me for all these upright gigs.
Right.
And not that he's complaining about it, but he was like, that's what I do. I can do both. Another one is, I'll give you the last one, Carlos Enrique.
Woo, yeah.
Bassist,
He is nasty on the leg. Yeah, you ain't even got to tell me about him. I already know.
But people just don't think that when they, for the most part, and that's the same with a lot of musicians.
Especially, it's mentioning Carlos, especially when you hear him play Latin on electric. It is like a whole nother level of, you're like, dang, bro, like you sound just the same on electric as you do on upright. That is amazing. That's amazing. And so for you, man, you play a multitude of different instruments, and you've been blessed to be surrounded by these musicians who not only have I would say have pushed you into the space that you are still aiming to try to get to, in your personal playing, but do you think these musicians has pushed you to another level of conscious thinking in music? Like when you're playing, like, I teach my students, and I'm sure you've had this conversation with your private students or classes that you've taught, that the level of focus that you have to have from beginning to end is vital. Like you have to stay in it the entire time. And a lot of younger musicians struggle with that. So what is something that you've done over time that has helped you gauge the performance a lot more centered, like being more focused versus just like, oh, I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to play because I'm young and I'm ready and I'm hyped and I want to do my thing?
Well, it kind of goes back to the earlier thing you said. I think it's just having more experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you just put yourself around those who are better than you, you'll learn something. And it doesn't have to be that person sitting you down like, hey, man. I mean, there are cats like that. I've never had that, but you don't need somebody to sit you down like, hey, do this, do that. I just watch and I just take notes, like mental notes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I honestly believe if you just around people that are better than you, it will raise your game. And that's anything. You know, if you graduated from nursing school, you're gonna get a job somewhere, yeah. But
Right.
you ain't gonna be the hottest nurse right now. You're gonna have some questions like, where do I put this? I forget, like, where do I put the IV?
Right. Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And there
Yeah.
are things that we can all learn. And even at my age, there are still things that I'm searching for to actually better myself as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, nobody. I mean, I feel I'm a really good one, but there's still things that I want to do. You know.
For sure, for sure. And then, so my last point before we jump into the actual 3 records part of the show, I wanted to ask you about your album, man. First of all, your album is dope. Like
Thank you,
I've been listening to it for the past few days, and I'm just like, dang, man, this cat can write, man. And just the musicians you have featured on the record is killing. But I love that song, "Vibing," bro. I've been vibing to that track. I love that song, man.
Yeah,
It is,
yeah.
and I can. And I was reading up just a little bit of what you mentioned in your biography, but I wanted to ask you personally, like reincarnation, is that were you trying to reinvent the wheel of what people know you as or what you have become like currently, or was this because you put a resurface of your love for R&B, and so
Yeah,
is this album kind of like basically like the opposite of what people know you for, like for what you get called
exactly.
to do? Is that what that was reincarnation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, like I said to you earlier, I didn't grow up in a jazz household. I have two older sisters.
Hmm.
I was born in '79. My other sister was born in '74, and the other one was born in '70. So when my ears started really getting accustomed to music, which happened to probably be around 1983, '84, which
Hmm.
is like when Def Jam was starting to come up.
Hmm.
You know, so I remember my sisters, they used to always play that movie Crush Groove a lot back in the day.
Yep.
So I started listening to Run DMC, New Edition, Beastie Boys, and all of that stuff. But at the same time, my parents would play Anita Baker, Yellow Jacket, Spiral Gyra, and then at the same time, they would go back still listen to the music of their day, Temptations and all those other groups. So
Right.
a
Right.
combination of all of this stuff has always had me, you know, wanting to play fusion, jazz, or R&B and things like that. It's just that somewhere along the line, like from around high school, is when I really started to like understand like traditional jazz. I was
Right.
like, man, this stuff is cool. Who's Charlie Parker? You know, one of my biggest idols was Antonio Hart because he used to live around the corner from us because he's from Baltimore. And I used to watch him, and I just continued to develop and develop when I got to college. But toward my last year of college, especially when people started seeing that I was playing piano and all these different styles of music,
Right.
I was ready to, you know, I was trying to decide because a bunch of my friends had either moved to New York or they moved to LA. Part of me wanted to move to LA, but I was like, no, let me stay out here on the East because I want to get this jazz stuff together. So,
Right.
long story short, after 8 traditional jazz records, I turned 40 last year in November. My birthday is next month. I'll be 41. But when I turned 40, I had this idea. I was like, you know, what else? What else am I going to say? You know, one of my friends here in Baltimore is drummer John Lampkin. He said to me all the time, he was like, dude, you have done 8 records of straight ahead jazz. You can do that. Everybody know you can do that. You're gonna kill it. It's cool. But what else can you say that's gonna actually just have some people just, you know, just bobbing your head? So
That. Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I was like, let me go ahead and do this record, Reincarnation, that's like a reincarnated soul of bringing this old music out. Now, on the record, I did have one, it's still a jazz record. Let me say that. I just took away the swing rhythm. However, just for the people who want to hear some swing, I put in one, like literally 1 minute of swing on one song before I went back to the groove. So,
Yeah.
but I
Man.
wanted to get cats who for that record who have that jazz understanding. Like I love musicians who, if even if you're playing funk, classical, whatever, I love musicians who understand jazz and have that jazz background with the harmony,
Hmm.
but who I know can get down with some other stuff. So that's
Right.
why I chose CV Dashiell on drums and Richie Goods on bass, like because he plays upright and electric very well. And Brett Williams, I know he's a younger guy, but Brett, you know, he's toured with Marcus Miller. He did tour with Sean Jones. So I already knew. I was like, this dude can play funk. He can play soul. He can, you know, everything. So it's very important for me to have those musicians who can understand those styles.
Right. Right. And man, you know what I wanted to ask was what's something that before we get into the music part, but what is something that the people can take away from this record? Like this is 2020,
Yep.
right? So they're hearing a much more mature, not that you was immature before, but in terms of your music and your growth, they're hearing a very mature, polished Warren Wolf versus from your first records in your earlier days, right? So would you say that this record, what do you want this record to represent? Like, what do you want people to take away from it?
That I can be simple and chill, and I can write feel good music that you can sit back and just relax to. My whole thing was I wanted to make the most random person on the street who doesn't know anything about harmony. I wanted them to hear this and be like, this is cool.
Yeah, man. I not only picked up that vibe, but my wife is like a big R&B fan, and she kept asking me, she's like, who is that? That's really nice. You're always playing this very like chaotic, loud stuff around the house. You know, I'm playing Blakey or Cecil Taylor, or I'm doing all this. I'm like all over left field. Then I just put the record in. She's like, oh, I like that. I say, okay, just chill. And this and so what I want to do is segue. Actually, that's a good segue for us to go into your 3 records. So for everybody who's watching, I ask my guests every week to pick 3 songs that have a soulful meaning that pertain to these 3 key words of my show, which is life, perseverance, and freedom. And so I asked Warren to select 3 songs of his choice that had a soulful meaning that catered around those particular songs. So for life, you chose one of my mom's absolute favorite songs of all time, which is Rapture by Anita Baker. And if you don't know, man, did you see that Versus?
I did not. I missed it. I missed that one.
Bruh,
I need to watch that whole line.
My mom called me and she said, Brandon, I don't know nothing about I don't know nothing about this. It's the IG thing, but I figured out how to get on this. Do you know that do you know they having a Versus? What is this Versus? I'm like, mom, chill. Just vibe. Just listen to the music, right? But tell me, why does this particular song represent life for you? What is it? How does this song have that kind of meaning?
It's honestly, it's probably her voice that does it for me. Like when she goes to that, right there, it's just like, this is life. It feels good. It just brings something out of like that soul part of it. So, I believe I wrote. I had some other stuff. I just don't remember exactly, but that song just gives me life in general.
And is there a song, if you had to take a song off your current album that can match that sound of Rapture, what song would that be? If people wanted to go and if they're listening to your record and you're like, you know what, this song has that Anita vibe. If you have one, like,
there's one on there. Kind of heartfelt song. I'll go with the tune I wrote for my 2 kids. It's called Sebastian and Zoe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very simple tune. I'm talking about the first time they did something. I'm talking about a separate story on them. The first time they went to the bathroom, or first time they brushed their teeth, or sweet story. But it gives people life. It's a feel good song. I played it for one of my homegirls one day, and she cried.
Oh wow, man, that's a good.
I wrote
feeling.
the lyrics too. That's another thing. So.
You know what, man? Let me ask you something. Do you think people be sleeping on rhythm section players when it comes to lyrical content? Because I've written a song. I wrote a song for my mother-in-law who passed away a few years ago, and the Air Force, the United States Air Force band, commissioned me to arrange that song for their band because a member in that group just so happened to came across my album and they heard that song and they were like, this is the most beautiful lyrics I've ever heard. And they thought that the vocalist wrote it. And I'm like, no, I wrote it.
Yeah.
You can write lyrics. I'm like, why do people always doubt rhythm section players or writing lyrics?
Yeah, because we don't see it too often. But I believe if we do it more often, people will start giving us respect.
Right.
Richard was the first person I knew who actually did it. On his record, was it Family Affair? Yeah, he wrote a song with Will Downing.
Yes, A Dream of You, one of my all-time favorite pieces. I love that song. That's actually where I got inspiration to write the ballad I wrote for my wife. and it was kind of based off of that record because I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, I'm like, William Downing is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but was he more of like a smooth jazz singer
Something like that.
from
It
the
was
'90s? Like
smooth jazz slash pop or something.
yeah, like I ain't never really known him for singing jazz. So when I saw Christian like put him on the record, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Cause
yeah.
I don't, but man, so for Anita Baker, do you think Anita Baker's music has had that kind of life felt, life felt music in your household and through your life as in your career as a musician? Do you
Definitely.
think kind of helped you shaped what kind of has become now?
Definitely, very much, man. If you just listen to some of the things that she does in her music, I mean, you
Hmm.
won't recognize it in mine, but there are definitely things that I've taken from
Sure.
that I've heard in her music that I like to throw in mine. Her music is like a lot of there's definitely soul and R&B to it, but there's actually some slight gospel to it as well. You
Mm.
know, one tune I started to put this one for life too. It's her, well, not her version, but she has a tune called Body and Soul, which is not the jazz Body and Soul,
Hmm.
but she has a tune called Body and Soul. It's a slow 3/4 tune. Man, it just feels good, and she just kind of just goes for it, you know.
Huh. I'm gonna have to check that one. I don't think I
Body
ever
and
been here
Soul,
today. Body
really
and
good
soul.
song.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, for the next one, for your next choice, I'm actually gonna go with Perseverance, and you picked a drummer who, to me, signifies. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Warren, because you kind of grew up in this particular time period when he was hot, you know. But my man Dennis Chamber, you picked the tune "Outbreak." Now, Dennis Chamber, for those that don't know, and this is my introductory to Dennis Chamber. It actually wasn't with Parliament. It was with the Brecker Brothers. That's actually how I heard of Dennis Chambers. I didn't find out about Dennis Chamber playing with Parliament, and that was his first gig until I got to college, and I actually met George Clinton because he lives in Tallahassee. And when he started going through the catalog, and I'm like, wait, Dennis Chambers played with you? He's like, man, he was like 18, 19 when he joined the band. I was like, dang, I never knew that. Because I've only known him for like the Brecker Brothers and like other like later stuff. I
Hmm.
never really knew about the earlier stuff he did with Parliament. So what about this song that makes you feel like what made you choose this song for Perseverance? Outbreak.
Man, if you hear this track, and it's actually Michael Brecker on saxophone on this track,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's Will Lee electric bass. I forget who's playing keys, but it just that the energy that they bring forth on this, it's very unusual sometimes unless you have some through composed piece where you hear guys really going for it on the track, and I could just tell like just listening to it, especially at the end they were just going for it, and they Dennis just wasn't ready to end it yet. You know, they were just vamping. It was just a strong vamp that was pretty up tempo, kind of like some a fusion thing, like they like Dennis like to play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. It just something about that track just really brings it out in me. Dennis, I don't have many heroes in this in music in general, but Dennis is number one, like my number one hero.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I've seen him play, I was just shocked. I was amazed, just like that. And when I heard like again that track "Outbreak" is just something else. It's killing. You gotta check it out.
So you actually got to see him live when you were younger, like to see him live play or
I've seen him live play live many times, and I've always tried to reconnect with him because he's from Baltimore,
oh okay.
and that's my my connection right there. So whenever I
Right.
would try to talk to him, I was like, "Well, Dennis, I'm from Baltimore," but see, Dennis is so like hot. Everybody loves him. You know, he's kind of like it's a few drummers like that. You know, at least the older ones like Dennis, Dave Weckl, Steve Gadd. You know, when
Mm,
people see those guys, it's like everybody wants to just kind of be around them. There's a certain presence about certain artists. Sometimes you just want to be around them.
mm-hmm.
But I've met him many times, but then he would just kind of say, "Yeah, all right, cool. So you just another kid from Baltimore." But finally, we had the chance to hit. So Dennis he did a record many years ago with Gary Bartz,
Mm.
or the Blues Chronicles. Came out in the '90s, full of Baltimore musicians. So I would say about 3 or 4 years ago, Gary did a show here in Baltimore of music from that record, and Dennis was on the gig, and me and Gary are cool. Me and Gary Bartz are cool. So he called and said, Warren, you want to play the gig? I said, yeah, I will be there. Dennis was on the gig. And that was I played with Dennis, I think, 2 or 3 times over the past couple of years. And I've really got a chance to know him. Really cool brother. Really cool. Like, really cool guy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he doesn't live too far from me. He's probably like maybe 10 minutes. But, you know, one of these days, me and him really got to hang out because I just wanted to just sit and listen to him. Not even play. I wanted to go and talk. You know, yeah, that's a lesson right there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Nah, man. So, and I tell my students that I'm like, sometimes y'all, the hang is where you get the information. It ain't necessarily all the time on the bandstand. The hang, like you actually being at the sessions, just hanging out with the musicians. Like, I'm pretty sure you had that experience the first time you went to New York. I know I had that first time I went to New York. Probably when you first moved up, when you went to Boston to go to Berklee, it was like the hang is real. Like you gotta hang, you know, man. So to wrap it up, your last song for Freedom, you picked a Miles Davis tune that is very familiar to me, Miles Smiles. Now, what about this song that made you connect to the word freedom, and how does this make you feel free and open?
So Miles Smiles, actually, I think I put that down for the entire record.
Oh, that's all right. All right.
I mean, if I had to pick a song from there, it would probably be Gingerbread Boy.
Gingerbread Boy, okay.
Which is a blues composed by Jimmy Heath, I believe it's Jimmy Heath. Mm-hmm. But the way they played on that record, what was the word? Freedom. They
freedom. Yep.
It wasn't perfect, but it was perfect. You know, sometimes, sometimes we be in the studio, somebody make a mistake. They be like, stop. You know, let's do it over. I messed up. But there are some moments on there, like there's a track called Dolores on that tune.
Yeah,
on that record. Mm-hmm. And at the end, and Miles even said it. You can hear him at the end, like when the band is over. He says, he got that raspy voice. He says, they played, what did he say? They played the melody about 6 times. And he says this is on the record. And that's what happened. It's like they played the melody, messed it up. Tony and Ron just tick it. They still going. Ron just walking away. But it just has such a vibe. It was just freedom. They were just kind of just going for it and just doing what they wanted to do without any restrictions.
Right.
That album for me is a masterpiece.
Do you think that's missing in music today? That kind of freedom, like, you know, I had and I know you know this young man, my one of my homies, Mr. Barry Stevenson, bass player. Mm-hmm. Me and Barry went to college together. We're only a year apart from each other when we was in school, and his latest record, you know, Iconicless. You know, I listened to that album and I said, dang, Barry, you're like one of the few people recently that I've listened to an album that just, it feels free. Like you just didn't have no restrictions. Not that you didn't have a concept or an idea going into the album, but you can hear the freedom of like the walls being broken down that restricts bass players from doing those kind of things that he did on this album. So do you feel that kind of approach is missing? Because the only period of jazz that really was in its truest form was the avant-garde period, you know, where cats really just did not care. Like, my students tell me all the time, a Jazz is Shaped to Come, it's hard for them to listen to that album because they're just like, I don't understand it. And I'm like, bruh, when I finally did my research on Charlie Hayden and I understood how he plays bass and what he was thinking like when he was playing with Ornette Coleman, like that made me realize like, dang, that you don't hear that a lot in jazz music nowadays. Like, not saying that it doesn't exist, because it does. But do you feel, because you've played with you've played with a lot of the top elitists, do you feel that that's missing? Do you feel like you've only experienced that with a certain amount of group of musicians, or I don't know if I'm asking that right.
I understand. It all depends on who wants it or who doesn't. I mean, I'll speak for myself. With my own tunes, and this is in any situation, with Reincarnation or any records in the past, I want my musicians to have total freedom to do, not to do it all the way what you want. I mean, there's certain parts that I'll be like, no, I need that. I need you to do this.
Right.
And I'm very picky about that because see, I have perfect pitch, and I can tell if you don't do it or not. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
gotta hide from you, man.
No, seriously, man. I don't mess around with that because I want my stuff to sound a certain way, but at the same time, I want you to add your sauce to it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
I'm bringing out the burgers, but you better put the barbecue sauce on to make it taste
Right, right.
better. But
I hear you.
yeah, you know, it depends. Everybody's different, man. Some people just really have a certain thing. This is how I want my music to be, and this is it. Leave it alone. We're gonna play it like this every single night. You
Hmm.
know, I'm totally open. Do what you want. You know, some cats like to look at me like, "Hey, Warren, how you feeling?" Or something like, "Well, like this." Well, you know, feel free if you feeling something, just add it. I'll hear you. Just go for it.
See, that's scary, man. You couldn't see, Warren, if you had told me that, like if you had hired me on your gig, you say, Brandon,
Yeah.
listen, man, I know you play bass well, man. Just do your thing. That would freak me out. Cause in that moment I would sit there like, man, is he trying to be funny? Like, does he really want me to like, what does that mean? And then it wasn't actually, it's funny that you say that because Carmen had a talk with me about Carmen Bradford. She had a talk with me right after we played, when we
Yeah.
all played it. And I came to her afterwards. I said, Carmen, that was the greatest experience I've ever had in my life. I've never played with musicians like at this kind of caliber. Like I've done it in spurts, but not an entire band where everybody on the bandstand is like,
Yeah.
no, but like that feeling I felt, like it was hard for me to come down off that feeling because I had never felt that before. I'm like,
Hmm.
man, I can't imagine if cats like this playing like this every night. Do they feel like this every night? Like, do you get burnt out after a while because you've been playing with so many bad cats? You just like you're
Yeah.
used to it now. It becomes a norm. Like, is that
Oh no, I mean I just try to go for it, man. But you know, a concert like that one, the one we did at the Gen Conference.
mhm.
See, you can't. Well, me personally, and actually for the other horn players, you can't slouch when you're on stage with Chad, because Chad will let you have it on almost anything. So I'm not gonna look stupid. I think
Yeah.
I think the only time I've ever pretty much backed down from playing with somebody, I mean, not saying we didn't play together, but it's just on a particular tune, it was honestly James Carter.
Really?
He's the only person because James Carter he's the type of musician, he will bring it in rehearsal. And I mean for real, like he's playing for real in concert, but we're just in rehearsal. But you know, quickly, we were on a gig in Colorado, and he asked me. He said, "Man, you want to trade on Cherokee?" I looked at him. I was like, "Nah, bro." I'm like, if we play, I'm going to solo first. I'm not playing after you, because he could do all these little thousands of things with the saxophone. I can't do all of that.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
Man, I remember again, like after that show and I asked Carmen, I said, Carmen, I feel like I deserve to be here, but man, like that was just a bizarre moment for me to be sitting here on this stage with all these folks and they playing at this level of like, I mean, they are bringing it and
Yeah.
everybody's enjoying it. I'm looking over at Matt. Matt is going ham on the drums. All I see is your arms moving fast. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is an incredible experience. But I wanted to ask this last question to you, and then we can wrap up the show here, man. In your time as being a musician, you notice I didn't say jazz musician because I
Mhm.
didn't want to box you because I know cats get sensitive with that when you
Yeah.
start putting labels on my title. Like, hold on.
Yeah.
I play drums. I'm not a jazz drum. I play drums, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But do you find yourself after you made this album, Reincarnation? Do you think now you've opened up a new lane for you, like a new segue into your career to do other things outside of the jazz idiom? You know, like, or would you think that you're kind of still kind of go back and forth?
I'm still back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
That those other lanes, it's kind of like, let's put it like this. My main lane is Broadway Street in New York, Broadway
Mm-hmm.
Avenue, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have those other lanes, 52nd Street, 40th Street,
Right,
those
right,
side ones.
right.
Hopefully they might open up to some bigger opportunities, which they have sometimes, but it's just not on a regular basis. So, you know, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I'm not even saying that as a complaint. I
Right.
just know, personally, I just never want to limit myself to just one thing because I know I can do other stuff, and that's just not who I am. Just to play one thing all the time,
For sure. For sure.
you know. And I just love music, you know. Tony Williams, he was swinging real hard with Miles and other folks, Herbie and all these other people, but he came out with Tony Williams in Lifetime, you know, playing fusion.
That was a
And the,
bad
the,
band.
the swing and jazz stuff will always be there. That's kind of like my boy John said. It will be there. It's not going anywhere. We
Mm-hmm.
just trying to open it up and just play different styles of music. There are many other styles of music to play,
Right.
you know. And I don't know if I'm going to actually get to that in my lifetime. But my one of my hopeful goals is just to do as much as I possibly can.
For sure.
You
For
know,
sure.
and it takes time because you know you do one record like how I did with Reincarnation, you're gonna want to do two more, two or three
Mm-hmm.
more. Now if you on your record releasing game like Nicholas Payton, you know Nicholas is releasing records like every week or something like that. You know, if you're on your game like that, that's cool. You can actually do that. But you know, I'm with the label and you know they try to do a record like every 2 years or something like that. But you know, I
Right.
have some ideas, you know, that I'm thinking about because um like this is a good one. I go to a Dominican barbershop. You know, all of my guys are from down there in the islands. And whenever I go get my haircut, they're playing some type of Latin music,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm always in the chair like, damn, this sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Cal Jader is a main dude for Latin vibes. At least he was. You know, he's not no longer here, but you know, I have plans to do a Latin record. I actually want to do a jam band funk record with my boy Thomas Pridgeon. Sorry, something happened on my computer. So I want to do like a funk record with my boy Thomas Pridgeon. I actually want to do a classical record at some point. Um,
Interesting.
um, like not necessarily classical all the way, but kind of like a Warren Wolf group with the symphony orchestra. And I've already talked to Billy Childs about possibly arranging, you know, some of the material. So I have quite a few different plans that I really want to do. Um, we just gotta, you know, I gotta see what happens. You know,
Yeah, that was
I'm
gonna be
also
my.
working on some other stuff too. You know, I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
create an app for because I'm really deep into education now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to create an app for students, you know, for them to play like accompanying tracks of mine and other people, like people my age, you know, instead of I mean nothing wrong with the April sauce, none of that stuff. I'm just talking about but you know, just playing some tunes that people want to hear nowadays, or
Right.
you know, tunes that probably came out within the last 20 years. But the difference is I'm going to make these tracks like make it feel real, like real as if you're playing on stage. You know, we're not going to just be like just if I'm playing drums, I'm not going to just swing behind you, ching, ching, ding, ching, ding, ching. No, I'm going to play like as if I'm Jeff Tane Watts. That way you get
Ooh.
that real feel.
Yeah.
But you know,
That's
I got a lot of things that I'm working like I told you an hour ago.
right.
I got a
Right.
lot of ideas. I'm trying to you know stir up right now.
Well, man, I would love to get the opportunity once again in the future to work with you again. As I've expressed that to everybody I met at the conference, I was like, man, I at least hope that I held it down my first time because I was nervous.
I couldn't tell.
Like, man, Carmen has known me for a long time, so she knew she she said the right thing to me before we started playing. She said, Brandon, you're here, enjoy it.
Yeah,
That's exactly what she
all you
said to
can
me.
do. Yeah,
Before all y'all walked on stage, she had said that. She said, Brandon, you're here, just enjoy it. And I said, all right, I'm going to take your advice. And boy, I was having a blast. So I would love to have, you know, the same energy again. And I'm definitely going to push the record out for you because I definitely enjoyed it. I know if my wife enjoyed it, I know it's a good record because my wife, I can't play straight ahead jazz for her. She just tunes it out. She's like, I have no clue what's going on.
that sounds like my
But
wife.
yeah, but that record, when she started to say, "Who is that?" I said, "Dang, that's the first time you asked me that in a long time." Like, you know, usually it's, "Can you please turn that down?" Because it's just loud. I hear it's dang, 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 dang.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, man, Warren, thank you so much, man, for doing this interview with me.
Thank you, bro, for having me.
I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward, like I said, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have going on for your future endeavors. Hope this app comes out. That'll be super dope. Yeah. And, man, everybody who's watching, please make sure you support my brother Warren by copying his new project, The Reincarnation. It is a dope record. I would not, y'all know me, everybody who knows me knows that I won't steer you wrong. I've always dropped y'all on some good knowledge. So, man, once again, thank you so much. Hope you and your family are staying safe. And, dude, I'm going to be looking out for you, man, what you got going on. So let's stay in touch. Thank you again, brother. You got it. All right, everybody. Y'all take care. Y'all have a wonderful night. And make sure y'all wear y'all masks, too, please. Please, stay safe.